Right now I'm working on changing the diff gearing in my Camaro. So I had 410s in it, but basically with these smaller wheels that I got, so I got some M parallels and switched it out to 255 35 18s, better for autocrossing and road course stuff. It was really low geared, especially with the smaller diameter tires. So I'm going to be putting 342s in here. In these first two snips, you can see my engine speed, first through fifth. I'm at 70 miles per hour with the 410s and the 342s. And then you can see at 6,500 RPM how fast the car would be going with the 410s versus the 342s. I basically got it all apart, and this was making a lot of noise. You can kind of see these gears were starting to kind of knife edge and basically wear out. It was making a lot of noise. So I got everything out of here. Just need to pound some new races in here and get this all set up. So I'll kind of walk you through that process. Got a bunch of new hardware, nice Eaton differential installation kit. So I'm going to go down to the shop and press these carrier bearings on here. Kept one of the old races to be sure we get it nice and seated on there. So yeah, let's get into it. Thank you guys for coming back and watching another video. What I have set up here is basically the pinion, the old pinion. I need to take this bearing off to get to the shim. So you basically put, you know, the shim, I think it's probably the stock shim that came with the differential, and we ended up using it on this one as well. You just put it over into the new gear set or onto the new pinion. We have a bearing that's kind of been bored out, so we can check, you know, all the gear pattern and backlash and everything before we press the new one on. So I'm going to get this off, and then I'll end up working on the carrier. First one pressed on, I'll do a time lapse to the other side. And it's really important that you do get it well seated right on the lower part of this carrier. So some people say put it in the oven and then you can just slide it on there, but you definitely want to finalize it with some type of press to be sure it's seated, because otherwise it'll move and then, you know, your shims will be out of spec. So I'm going to switch it over to the other side and we'll be on our way. So both bearings are on now, so you can see that last final little distance. You can think that it's all the way down, but it really isn't. So make sure to press on it good. I'm going to go back up to our other shop and start getting this all set up. So I got the pinion in here with the mock-up bearings, so no crush sleeve or anything. And what I am doing is, you can see the carrier and the ring is not here, so it's in the oven, and then the carrier is in the freezer. So I'm trying to basically expand the ring gear and then shrink the carrier just enough so I don't have to, you know, force it on with the bolts. So I'm going to try and get a video of me, you know, setting it somewhere and dropping that ring gear on there. So check it out. So you can see it dropped right on there. You do have to make sure that you get it in the right orientation, so don't let it you know, basically get cold without putting the bolts in there. So what I'm doing now is, you know, getting ready to torque down these bolts. So left hand thread on these, and you got to make sure to put Loctite on them. So I'm going to spray all these out as I go around it. Start over here, torque one, or, you know, torque one, and then spray out the next one and just get her done. So what you do is use the dial indicator and basically move this back and forth without moving the pinion, and you can see there's just like barely any play in here. So what that means is, you know, basically they're too tightly meshed, and I think that's actually how I had it set up last time. It's kind of noisy. So I'm going to move some shims from this side, or from this side over to this side to move it that way. Probably just start with one shim and see how that goes. Basically I had this all torqued down and everything set up in the way that it would be. And then, you know, you want to make sure you got a good gear pattern and also a correct backlash spec. So I'm going to keep playing around with it, and then once I get, you know, the backlash all set, I'll check the gear pattern. And you change the gear pattern basically by changing the shim on the pinion So that's why I put that checker bearing in there so it's not pressed on there, and I can change that shim easily. So you can see I got the dial indicator set up here. It's around, it looks like about 8,000, so should be good. Check the gear pattern, looks really nice. Nice and centered on there and on both the drive and coast side. So I think this thing is ready to go. So now that I got it all set up with that, you know, mock-up bearing, I'm gonna press this one on. So I'm gonna put you on the time lapse right now. Totally forgot to time lapse, but anyways, so now I got the bearing in here. It basically has this crush sleeve, so don't forget that. And before you start putting the yoke on, you got to be sure to put this seal on here. So I'm going to put some silicone around the edge of this. You know, put this in, and then I'll put the yoke on there. Make sure to put some grease on here so it has some lubrication before the oil gets there. And then what you want to do is put the yoke on. Definitely put some silicone in the splines of the yoke so it doesn't leak. And then you'll use basically like an inch-pound torque wrench to tighten that nut until you have the correct, you know, it's basically has like a torque spec for spinning it to make sure it has the correct preload on the bearings. What I've been spending the last little bit working on is getting this pinion set up. So basically what you need to do, there's a crush sleeve in here. I have the old one. We were having a hard time, me and my dad, trying to get this bearing on here, but it looks like it just needed some brute force. So this crush sleeve basically works. It, you know, it's expanded, so this is a crushed one, but it's a little, you know, wider this way. And then as you crush it, it basically puts preload in between the bearings this way, so it keeps it nice and tight. So, and then what you have to do is check basically how much force it takes to spin this. So let me show you guys what this looks like. So this is all set up now. It's right around 20 inch-pounds to move it. So people recommend in between 14 to 20, or 14 to 19 is the spec that I saw, and I have right around 18, so a little on the tighter side, but should be good. Now that's basically done. I got my seal in there. Don't forget to put the seal in there, obviously, before you get it all set up. And now I'm gonna switch back over to putting this carrier in. And you know, I talked to you guys about getting all those shims and everything set up, and I had a really good pattern. So I'm basically ready to put the carrier back in there. Then I can put the axles in, C-clips back in, and I'll kind of show you that process. And then I can put the cover on there. Then I'm pretty much done with this, and that will be the conclusion of this video. So I am working on Zed the Z in this one. I know I didn't do much of an intro, but it should be really nice. I could show you, I might show you at the beginning, basically the change that I'm making in between the 410s and the 342s. So with these different wheels and tires that I got, I basically really needed it. So it's gonna be, fingers crossed, the right gearing, and we'll see in a little. One thing I'll mention, so you do need quite a bit of force to set that crush sleeve. So I basically used this big 3/4 inch bar, you know, with one of the roll cage tubes from Stu the Nova when I was putting that in. And I also made this tool that goes, you know, onto the yoke, bolts on, and gives me a good amount of leverage. So I'd recommend making something like this. It's better than using like a pipe wrench or something. Makes your life a little easier. Did one final backlash check with the old dial indicator. So, you know, just wanted to be sure with the finalized bearings, my backlash was still right. All the shims are still good. So what I did is I put this, put these caps in here, obviously put the carrier in there, put the caps on, and then put a little grease in between the washer and the nut to be sure I get the correct torque, and then also some Loctite on these nuts, torqued it down to 60 foot-pounds. And I kind of went in a cross pattern, so we should be all good to go. And now what I'm doing is putting the axles in from the outside, and then you put the C-clips in here, and then I can put in, you know, this basically holding rod for the C-clips, put my through bolt through, and then I can put the drive shaft back on and put that cover on there. So I'm gonna get the cover on there. I might time lapse that, or maybe not. Kind of at the end of the day here, trying to get it all done. So yeah, I'll catch up once it's all put back together, and it should be mint. Got it all frickin' buttoned up. So I do have some spacers to try and space these BMW wheels out a little further. They're a little in on the back, so 1 inch spacer on this side. or on both sides, and I got the diff all put back together, cover on here. I'm gonna let the silicone dry before filling it with this oil here. I'm gonna jack this thing up and put it back on its wheels though. So I think I'll conclude the video once I fill it with oil and confirm that it's good. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Camaro's back on the frickin' road, so everything came out really good on the rear diff. Nice and quiet now, so I might put some footage in, me just driving it home. Appreciate you guys watching, and we will see you in the next one.